I say I'm confused enough right now, so. Yes, I do.
And the company calls Kim Smith. Good afternoon. Are you the same Kim Smith who has testified in days prior of this hearing?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you a few questions to follow up on commission questions that were directed to you or that we understood to be directed to you.
Okay.
Okay. Do you recall Commissioner Whitfield asking you about legal fees related to the Catawba Watery relicensing project?
Yes, I do.
Do you have that information now?
I do. Out of a total of $126 million, we spent about 3% or $4 million on legal fees.
Okay. And do you recall Commissioner Whitfield asking you about how much of Lee CC, owned by Duke Energy, is allocated to South Carolina?
Yes, it's about 24%, the generation part, and then part of it's actually transmission. I think it's about $44 million system total, and it's 18%.
Okay. Do you recall Commissioner Irvin asking you about the treatment of potential rents from a building that Duke Energy Corporation plans to construct in Charlotte?
Yes, and I have since found out that the building that we're constructing in Charlotte will be a sales, so that when we construct it, we're going to sell the building, then we will lease our space back. There'll be no rental income. But then I went ahead and confirmed if we do own a building and do have rental income, the rental income is allocated to the customers the same as the cost.
And do you recall Commissioner Howard asking you how long the accumulated deferred income taxes have been accruing, and you indicated you needed to get those numbers?
Yes, I did. I had to call the tax people. So they started we started collecting them in 1986 when the tax rate of 35% went into effect. So I think the average age is about 25 years of those that we've been collecting them. You're welcome.
And Ms. Smith, have all other questions that were directed to you been otherwise answered to the best of your knowledge?
I think so, but I'd like to address a couple of things if possible. Yesterday, someone said that I said that if we did not receive our deferrals, the company would not be able to operate. And as far as I know, I've never said that, especially in my written testimony. And I just wanted to clear that up. And then I know Miss Renee Metzler, you all talked to her about incentives regarding the 50% and why we picked 50% when we initially did our filing. And we picked 50%, when we're looking at all these adjustments that we have, just like we didn't use 10.75 for our ROE, we used 10.50. We look at the increase that we're asking for and if there's any way to mitigate it. So even though we feel like those are reasonable costs for us to recover, it was just one of many devices we could use to bring the ask down a little bit.
Is that of the top 4 executives?
That's of the top 4 executives, yes. And another thing I wanted to bring up, if it's okay, is the e-billing and some of the data requests. I have been working in the rate department since 2008, and I've probably looked at 1,000, probably more than 1,000 data requests from the ORS. And when we do, all those data requests I've looked at all these years, if they ask for a particular type of information, that's what we give them. So I personally did not approve the litigation costs that were discussed yesterday. I did not review that as manager. I reviewed a lot of the data responses. But I went and looked at the question. we answered the question that was asked of us. And historically, that would have been acceptable. So I feel like we've been caught in a hard place thinking that we were supposed to know that they wanted more information. And in my history for the last 10 years, if they asked for a list of expenses and we gave them a list of expenses, if they wanted more, they asked for more. So for us to basically read their mind and know that they needed contracts, because usually if they want contracts, they ask for contracts. So that bothered me. And then another thing, I did have a discussion with the ORS on the e-billing. And because I was an auditor at one time, and I understand that they need to be able to audit the information, for reasonableness, to make sure they're protecting the customer, and I understand that. But we've been using e-billing for so many years, and I actually, so I called them one day. I thought we should be able to solve this. We should be able to give them the information they need. So I actually had like an example, and that's when Kamal, Mr. Robinson, our attorney, wrote Mr. Bateman. And I think I finally came up with they want a paper invoice. And I explained that a lot of large companies they will use e-billing now. It's more efficient. It is sustainable because you don't have all that paper. When an attorney I actually approved one e-bill, and I can go back and see what I approved last time, what the bill was. It's easy to go back and forth. It's really a better check because you used to be, if you had paper invoices and you were looking at an invoice and someone had to say, they'd have to go, somewhere in a file drawer and get the other invoices. So this was a much better way. So I did some investigation, and I thought, so I've asked some attorneys, what they put in our system is what would be on the paper invoice. Because I said we can go back and get those law firms to type up a paper invoice, but they're going to charge us for that, and that's not the best thing for our customers. But they would put the same thing on the invoice that they would put in the e-billing system. And and they're saying that we could, since it's downloaded into an Excel worksheet, I guess this really just kind of got me, that we could change it. Well, there is privileged information, and they do mark that off, but the fact we could change, they thought we might actually change it really bothered me. But then I started thinking I could go out, get a piece of paper, look at someone's letterhead, and type up an invoice myself. That's also possible. And when I was an auditor at one time, if they're really verifying that was paid, then they need to send an independent verification to the third-party vendor, because anything we touch, we could, if they think that we're going to do that, we could change it. So in our e-billing system, it's been used and it's going forward, and so I guess this commission needs to decide too if we can use e-billing or if we need to start asking people for paper invoices again and go back to that. But it will cause a larger cost for our customers because we'll have to hire staff to go through paper invoices and file it, and then we'll need filing space, so we'll need more space to put everything. So I wanted to bring that up, and I'm sorry, but let me see. The deferrals, when I first saw the ORS's direct testimony on this, I actually called Deloitte. So I thought, are we just missing something? Because I could not find any accounting literature. Speaking of data request, I made a data request to the ORS for their information, the accounting pronouncements they used, because I was asking Deloitte, and Deloitte even couldn't tell me, and they wrote the one manual they're referring to. And Deloitte said, nope, you're not missing anything. There's no accounting that follows that. So, and they did not answer my data request. They gave me some pro formas, but they didn't answer what accounting literature they were looking at. So,
Ms. Smith, does that complete your list of items
so.
and that were also directed to you?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, and just to be clear, the invoice information that we have produced was not altered in any way except for privilege redaction.
No, it's not.
Okay,
It's not.
thank you.
All right, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, so you had a lot of questions punted to you. Have we gotten all the questions that were punted down to her?
That's fine.
Go for it.
Smith, did you just testify that you can forge documents?
No, I said that the ORS seems to say we can forge documents. We don't. That offended me, really, that they would even think I would do that.
Well, we didn't accuse you of forging documents. Did you just raise that issue?
You said it could. They said it could be forged. That's why they didn't like the Excel worksheet. So that's why I was saying that you can forge any document. People can, they forge checks now. So if they're looking for an audit, they need to do the third. I used to be an auditor and I was a fraud examiner, so that's why this comes out.
Did you give ORS access to your e-billing system?
We also offered them affidavits from our third party. I don't think they ever asked for access to our e-billing system.
You offered affidavits?
Yes.
When did you do that?
Mr. Robinson did in the email that went into the exhibits on, what day was that? Yesterday, maybe?
I think I can. I don't think it was entered.
Oh, it wasn't entered?
No, it was not entered. I'm happy to give counsel a copy. It came up during our questioning, but I'm happy to give counsel a copy.
I've seen that. Thanks. I appreciate it, but I've got one.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, I just handed you what was late filed exhibit number 49. Do you believe that accurately represents the give and take between ORS and the company regarding this issue?
Okay, this is the litigation. When I was talking to them directly, it was on the rate case cost. But, yes, so on my years that, because I've been a manager reviewer a long time, it says, please provide invoices for all coash litigation expenses that the company has requested recovery for. So, and we sent a spreadsheet, which y'all had up on the monitor the other day, and that comes out of our e-billing system. And reading this, there's nothing about, this is 55, yeah. It doesn't say anything that they need contracts or anything else. It just says invoices for coash litigation expenses.
Okay, so which
document are you reading off? He
gave me.
That's late filed exhibit.
This
I believe it's
the one. It's your late filed exhibit.
Yeah, 49.
Request 55.
Yes.
So, thank you. 55. Got it.
So I want to make sure because I might be. I don't know if I'm confused or what, but the 49, we're talking about the coal ash litigation expenses, right? But
Correct.
Your reference before was just to the rate case expenses.
Yeah, I think at that point we had not, I don't think they had requested the coal. I'm not sure the timing. It's kind of gotten mixed up, but they all come out of the e-billing system, and I was discussing the e-billing system because I think it's it's what we're going to e-billing more and more on different parts of the company. So,
and I understand that, but when it comes to something like when ORS questions an expense, like they did with some of the coal ash litigation here, isn't it the company's responsibility to provide additional information if it's requested to back up those charges or expenses?
If it's requested, but they requested the invoice, and our e-billing system is a representation of the invoice. That's why we don't necessarily have paper invoices anymore.
So how is ORS supposed to be able to verify what those legal expenses went to? if we don't
we would
have details.
In the past, I would expected a additional data request to come that says, oh, for this invoice, they would take a sample. I think we've done this on fuel contracts and, coal contracts, things like that. And they would say on line number 12, for example, please provide the contract these people are working on, or, additional information. We need additional information to know.
So y'all were not aware that ORS was contesting these charges? Is that what you're saying?
At what point?
Well, at any point.
We knew they were when they filed their rebuttal, or their SIR rebuttal, I guess, which was Tuesday evening at 5 o'clock, and we came into hearing Thursday morning at 10.
I want to go back to the exhibit that you've got right there.
Okay.
Specifically, what level of detail is there provided on that? Does it contain any? Does it give the hourly rate that's being charged?
No, but we can, if that's requested, we can put that on the exhibit, and that was one of the reasons I called about the rate case expenses, because that was, I think I sent a sample or asked if they wanted, I could get them the hourly rate and the number of hours.
ORS didn't contest any of the rate case expenses, did they?
No, but that was just the discussion I had about the rate case expenses, because they wanted the paper invoices. So I called them to discuss it.
You had mentioned just a little while ago, too, you were talking about deferrals somewhat.
Yes.
And I'd asked Ms. Hunsucker and Ms. Quick some questions, and they had punted them to you.
Oh, okay.
So I wondered if I could
That's fine.
ask those of you. Could you tell me what process the company uses to determine whether or not to use or establish a deferral?
You look at what you're earning, and if you're earning your return, so you have to make a decision to whether to go into for a rate case, or as you all know, we delayed our rate case due to various issues that were going on, and to do that, we had to file for deferrals. And because everyone keeps saying, I keep saying we're allowed a reasonable return, our investors are, and everyone's been talking about 10, 5, 9. On our, before our proposed increase on my rebuttal exhibit, the equity that's being earned is 4.8. So it is much lower. So when we see that, we decide we need to come in we have the deferrals, which would bridge us to when we could come in for a rate case.
So the deferrals are an effort to eliminate or reduce regulatory lag. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's one method. Okay. Because a rate case also reduces regulatory lag,
sure.
But yes.
But, it's ultimately the company's choice when to file a rate case, right? The last one was filed in, 2013 or 14? 14, I guess. So it's been 5 years, right?
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
And that's the company's option, when to file a rate case, correct?
Yes, it is.
Sorry, I got a mess of notes up here.
Oh, no, that's okay. I understand. I figured you'd be asking me more questions.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. I think it was filed in 2013. I think the order, I believe, at least, was issued in 2014.
Yeah, and I think the year end, actually, the test year was June 2012, yeah. If I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Because I had just come on to, I went to all the night hearings and sat in the back of the room.
Oh, you were hiding?
I wasn't hiding. You'll find I don't ever hide. But I was watching.
Yeah. This is just a clarification, I think I'm looking for here, because it may just be a disconnect between what we've heard from you and what we heard, I think, from Mr. Payne up here the other day. Mm-hmm. You mentioned a $68 million figure is the difference between the ORS and the DEC positions on deferrals. Am I right when I say that?
That is true.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think Mr. Payne the other day testified, he said that he calculates it as a $4 million difference. Can you tell me where the why those numbers are so far?
Yes, and also ask Mr. Payne for the calculations behind his numbers, but I'm not sure if I ever received those.
That's the ones I think y'all asked for just the day before the hearing.
I think it was just the regular pro formas,
Right.
because Mr. Payne's $4 million is calculated. If you go to his SOA rebuttal testimony, page 3, and I'm sorry I keep taking my glasses off and on. If ORS recommendations incorporated the same amortization periods as the company and did not include a change to the allowable coal ash cost, ORS reduction to the company's revenue requirement based on the ORS recommended accounting treatment of deferred balances would be approximately $4 million. So the $4 million is if you all used our shorter amortization periods and we get allowed all of our coal costs.
That would be the $4 million.
And I have not confirmed that. I did not sit down and recalculate Mr. Payne's calculation, but that's what it says it is.
Ms. Shirley Smith, your company attorney, had asked the ORS panel the other day if they had attended Duke's allowable ex parte, where Duke explained how hard it is to attract and retain quality employees. Do you remember hearing that?
Yes, I do.
Are you aware of that briefing that was given?
Yeah, I was not at that one.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what exactly, as far as can you tell me, we've talked a lot about these benefits and bonuses and awards and type things. Do you have or can you just name off the top of your head a comprehensive list of what all of these award programs and bonus programs are?
I can talk about some of them, and I'm glad you brought that up because my attorney stopped me before I could talk about that. So I know they're talking about incentives. Tell you the truth, I wish we didn't have an incentive program. I'd rather have it in my base salary because I wouldn't have to worry about customer satisfaction. I wouldn't have to worry about if we made our EPS. I wouldn't have to worry about if I was watching every penny I spent, and we do because we're accountants, because it wouldn't matter if it was on my base salary. So I wanted to say that, and you let me do that, so I appreciate it. The coffee and things like that, the way I see that, when I'm managing people, coffee seems like a very little, it's not a luxury item. It's coffee in the break room. If one of my employees' husband dies, if we didn't send her flowers, I would probably do it out of my own pocket.
Sure, I get that, but we do that out of our pocket in my office. Why is it fair that you go to somebody that can't afford coffee themselves and ask them to pay for your employees' coffee?
Well, let me look at it this way. I have been in a lot of different jobs, and there was one I was in that I was paid very well, but it kind of became one of those things where they didn't send flowers. They didn't ever pat you on the back. Your boss never, if you'd been there 10 years, they didn't even have a cupcake. And we all felt it was just like you felt so like you were just, they only wanted you weren't appreciated. That's how you felt. These little things make people feel appreciated. It's not a big, it's just small gestures to make people know that you're thinking of them, and it makes them want to come to work. I really like working at Duke Energy. And as I've said, I've been in a lot of, I've probably been with 5 different companies. And that one company I left and quite a few people left because we just did not feel appreciated. And I can go next door and get a job paying just as much, and they'll let me have free coffee and buy me a birthday cake or something every once in a while. And then the lineman rodeo. I see lineman rodeo as I have to have CPE. I'm an accountant, CPA, every year, 40 hours CPE required. I go to class. Well, lineman rodeo is kind of like that. You go and you learn from your peers and you hone your skills, and don't we want people learning, and why shouldn't they learn? And it's from an international group. So, and I think it benefits our customers to have, one, we all sharpen our skills. in any way. Plus, it just makes, and I've worked with those linemen. I've been out on the field with those linemen, and they are so, it really makes me feel good when I go out and work with them, when they're on these storm duties and, they're out there all the time working in awful conditions.
And I understand that. I mean, okay. I get that, and we're only talking about, what, $80-something thousand for the
I'm just
rodeo,
talking the
right?
overall, I think.
I'm talking more about the millions and millions of dollars that are spent on these bonuses and award programs every year.
Well, like I explained, too, if we just paid everyone our base salary, we wouldn't have to worry about all those other things. And that makes, it does make you watch your dollar.
But you've got, you have, exceptional contribution awards, merit awards, spot awards, service awards, safety awards.
They're all kind of just doing different things. And safety awards, I mean, that's a big thing and a utility is a safety award. And they're not, and none of those are really that big either. It's just there are different ways. Like, you don't give an accountant a safety award. But actually, I think we have more accidents in the corporate headquarters than we do anywhere, where people fall on the floor. And they do come around and check our desks for space heaters and things like that. But they're normally not going to give an accountant a safety award, where they might give an accountant who's worked, 3 weekends in a row to get something done, and they might say,
so
might give you a spot bonus.
Some of these are kind of pat on the back things, but all of these together are supposed to, I guess, help contribute to your both recruiting and retaining employees. Is that?
Yes, it does. I mean, if you go and you work 3 weekends straight and no one does anything for you, then it makes you feel like you're not appreciated. So the next time somebody wants you to work Saturday, you're not going to come in that Saturday.
Didn't Duke, though, just go through a recent reduction in force where you cut about 1,900 employees?
We have, when they say we're, the newspaper, when they're saying they're cutting employees, we're also hiring employees. I'm not very versed on this. It would have been the group before, but where times are changing, like e-billing. We have, some of the older IT guys have retired, and they're bringing in new, people that know social media and all these analytics that are new, a new updated set of skills that's needed in the business.
Wasn't there an overall reduction, though, I thought, in the workforce?
I think it's still going on, and some groups are hiring, so you kind of have to look. And I don't know, but yes, they always announce the reductions, but some departments are hiring, what I've been told.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Done.
Are there any other questions that we have not, that got punted that weren't answered?
Good afternoon, Ms. Smith. I hope these are pretty simple questions, but that I've just been trying to understand a little bit.
Okay.
Is the e-billing system a system that the company created the platform for?
Oh, I don't know if it's a company created or a, out of the
third-party vendor.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of different e-billing systems out there, and so I'm not sure which one it is, no.
So your outside counsel who does legal work for you, they then, I guess, upload the time they spend into this system?
And I think it's done different ways. I tried to find out more information, but you'd probably have to have the woman who runs the system. I think it can be done various ways.
Do you know if you have a system in place where whether someone within your organization or an external third party reviews those bills to ensure that they shouldn't be cut for any sort of a reason? Does that make sense?
What do you mean cut?
So in my experience as an attorney who bills by the hour, I frequently work with companies who use e-billing systems. Okay. And what my accounting office does is they upload those bills. Mm-hmm. And then some systems have a person whose job it is to review those bills. And there are times where I will receive notice back either from the billing vendor or from the customer that says, you haven't explained why you billed me 2 hours for this task, or ordinarily we don't pay more than 0.1 tenth of an hour for this task. So do you all use someone to look at the bills that you all receive for the legal work that you're paying for?
Oh, yes. All the bills, like, so they will go to our internal counsel that is over that particular area. So I'm sure, so for the rate case, outside legal, Heather Shirley Smith will look at the bills, and that's why I think the e-billing is so much easier, because she can look at what's on this bill, and then she can toggle back and forth instead of having to get a paper invoice and see what they did last time. And then she can make notes, send it back to the third party if she has questions, and they can answer the questions and then send it back. And that's the process they go through.
And so then ultimately it ends up on, we call it an appeals process, but ultimately you end up on a number that you agree that is an amount of money you will pay for the services that were billed to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay. So then I just want to make sure that I've been trying to follow precisely where the issue was, but so am I to understand that when you go to export the details of the billing in your system, that your system exports that information into an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, we could do screenshots, but that's the way we normally do it because it's easier to do it into an Excel worksheet. And then especially if it's privileged information and the attorneys have to go through and mark stuff out.
Where they say, here's the advice we gave, we charge this much to do it. They redact this is the advice we gave.
I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure what they have to redact. So that's the redaction process. So we could do the screenshot PDF process, and they could just take a marker, I guess, and mark through it. Yes, I guess there's a couple ways to do it, but but it's all coming out of the e-billing system. So what I've been told is the same thing is in the e-billing system that would have been on a paper invoice if there was a paper invoice.
Well, that is, my billing doesn't change whether or not I email a bill or whether I upload a bill. It's all the same. But so does the spreadsheet then have the capability to produce the following?
Okay.
The number of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
By task.
I really don't know what a task is. It's by...
So, for example, I'll break it down for you. So, I had to travel here, and then I am attending to be here.
Yes.
And then I had to do work to prepare to cross-examine witnesses while I was here. So, for my billing purposes, those would all be separate entries for which I would notify the client that I spent 3.5 hours traveling, 6.5 hours at the hearing.
Yes.
And so these sorts of spreadsheets, would they have provided those individual items with a description of what was done for that period of time?
And I am sorry, I do not know the answer to that.
Do you know whether it would have provided the billable rate for which that increment of time was done?
I have seen billable rate and number of hours on a report that came out of the system. So I know that's on there. You can do that. So.
And so in the future, if someone wanted to receive that level of detailed information, is that a request that they ask for both the invoices and all of the individual billing detail? And so you believe that if a very specific request were made, I guess what you're saying is the system could have exported it?
Yes, and that's what happened because I thought, they called and they said they needed, first they said they called and needed, they kept saying they needed invoices. So finally I called and I was like, what do you need? And they said, we need more information. So I said, okay, so it was a Friday afternoon, 4:30. And so I called legal and the girl said, what can I get? And I got an example and I emailed it and I said, how will this work? And this did have, I think this was actually a retainer type bill, so it didn't have as much information. And that's when they said they would go talk to legal at the ORS, and they came back and they said they didn't think that would work. And then that's when, and maybe it's just my impression, they actually wanted a paper invoice.
So going back to my experience, because that's what I have to rely upon.
That's fine. Yeah, I know,
But
this
I
is
have
my
to-
only experience with this. So okay,
I understand, but I have to get my billable hours in, and we close our books.
yes,
That's not exactly the right word, so I don't want to mix real accounting terms. But
Yeah.
so the end of the month, for purposes of billing during the work week for my firm, will end, I think,
Today.
29th.
Oh, I keep thinking it's Friday. It's not, is it?
So for us, April 1st is on Monday.
Yes,
Just seems like Friday.
it does seem like Friday.
And so what will happen is when I will be given a time entry deadline by which I have to have all my time in for the month. And then my accounting department kind of closes that off and takes all that. And for all intents and purposes, does send an invoice
Yeah.
through the e-billing system. So on April 1, my firm will run its paperwork and will submit electronically my March invoice.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm just confused. Are you saying that your billing through your system is continuous, or is it still done on like in April you get March billing?
Oh, I'm sure it's done that way. Yes.
So it is still an invoice system. It's just not in the traditional paper system of days past.
Yes, that's what there is no, invoice that has the letterhead of the company. You know how the old invoices were, and has everything typed out or off a computer or whatever. It's actually just in, and I actually it was actually one of ORS Witness Smith's exhibit number 9. I have it here, and I can tell you what we gave her then.
I don't know that we made that non-confidential.
Well,
And that's okay. I just wanted to
we gave her.
I just was struggling to understand a little bit. My experience is that there is monthly billing, and whether you
I'm
call
sure
it
that-
an e-billing invoice or a paper invoice, there's still an invoice. So I was kind of confused as to why invoices couldn't be produced, because in my experience through my e-billing, they could be. So I was trying to understand what about your system was different.
It's not different.
Okay,
So-
that's really what I needed to know.
Yeah, so that's what, when we produce this Excel spreadsheet, or if we feel like it is the invoice, which is just an Excel worksheet format.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate
you.
your time.
That all the questions? Have we got all the questions that were punted to Ms. Smith? Commissioners included. Commissioner Urban?
Ms. Smith, how are you this afternoon?
Oh, I'm good.
Great. It's good to have you back with us. Here's why it's important to the Commission, and I want you to think just for a moment that you're a member of the South Carolina Public Service Commission,
Okay.
and you have a duty under law to know what costs and attorney's fees are attributable to coal ash, and what percentage of that would be a South Carolina responsibility.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be important for you to know when you get a response like the one that we got, to know what case name relates to those charges?
Yes, it would be, and I am not in the legal
I
department.
know you're not. I'm asking from an accounting standpoint. You're
Yes.
an accountant, and you've been a forensic auditor too.
Yes, I have.
And so you know, if anyone in this room knows, you know the importance of having a name associated with the cost.
And I'm sure we could have provided that.
And I guess my question is, why wasn't that done? Because that's important. How are we going to even know what? Because, I've worked in a large law firm and worked for clients like you. And it's so important to know, for example, if an attorney's fee is paying for an EEOC hearing or for corporate counsel retainer, it could be 1,000 different accounts that are represented in this printout. And we have no clue what's related to coal ash because it's not designated on the response.
And I think this is part of it, where the data request process is going to have to evolve.
It's got to evolve very quickly because this is not helpful. We have no clue what to include and what to exclude.
But it also has, as I said, historically, I'm not sure if we get.
We're not going to be a
Yeah.
rubber stamp. If that's been the historic practice, that's over.
I'm not saying that,
Because
but
our ratepayers have a right to know what legal cost and attorney's fees are related to the South Carolina portion of your business for the coal ash portion of your request. And you have the burden of proving it, and you haven't done that.
okay, they ask us for the listing of.
And you didn't provide it.
We
You gave them this list of accounts, but nothing documents what they were for. That's a simple concept, isn't it? Nothing tells us is coal ash related.
They ask for only coal ash related. That's all we get.
How do we know? It's just a list. There's not even a name on the list.
So
There's none of the items have any identifying information, so it's useless.
And I guess that's where I'm saying in future we're going to have to do this
Right. In
differently,
fact, you're going to have to do it in the present.
and that's fine if no one asks us for that.
We're asking for it now.
And we're
asking for it
we
now.
can do that, and we understand that. It's just it kind of got changed on us in the
Well,
middle of.
we can't just rubber stamp
Oh, I know that. Yes,
because
yes.
there may be mistakes. There could be honest mistakes that were made where someone entered an account related
Oh yeah.
totally to some other matter, not coal ash related. So we have to have proof. If you're going to ask for a reimbursement from the case, we have to have proof. That's you understand that, don't you?
Well, yeah, that does not bother us a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
we're more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
We understand. We would not expect you to
Right.
rubber stamp it. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Belser?
Ms. Smith, and I really don't, I'm hesitant to ask this, but when I look at this audit request 55, which I think was marked as hearing exhibit 49, I think, and this response, this is to Part 5, and Part 5 says, please provide invoices for all coal ash litigation expense that the company has requested recovery for. We do realize that it may take some additional time to produce the invoices, so provide these as they become available. And from the discussion with counsel, there is some sort of underlying invoice type document that is uploaded into the e-billing system, is it not?
Well, as the council was just talking, if the third-party counsel,
Right.
I think it's done different ways. So if they're also on an e-billing type platform, they put it in their system, and then it's uploaded to our system.
Well, didn't you talk, one of you was talking about toggle back and forth.
Oh, that's like, so say I'm an attorney and I send my e-bill to Duke Energy for
Right.
March, and one of the attorneys, the responsible attorney for that particular matter, whether it's coal ash, rate case, whatever.
Suppose this Ms. Smith.
Yeah, this Miss Smith. So she looks at it and she looks at my March one, and then she can toggle back and look at what I submitted in February easily instead of having to go somewhere and pull a paper invoice.
But is it on this form of a spreadsheet, or is it an invoice-looking thing that just has all of that attorney's charges that is...
It's more, it's an electronic, so there's different...
I understand it's electronic, but...
When I don't have a...
But it's that monthly billing for that attorney, or
Yes.
2-week billing, or whatever time
Yeah, whatever
period.
it is, yes. So and it has, the name...
And those, if she can toggle back and forth, are those not producible as invoices responsive to this audit request?
And that would be the screenshots,
Okay.
I think, because this is basically the screenshot, how it's
Of the
produced.
summary. That would be a line item summary, would it not?
No, this is actually what's in the system.
Okay. Okay, so it does have the different days. Okay. It just doesn't have a description.
And I think there is a description in here, but maybe it's just not on this sheet. I see it looks like the, let me go look at the top one. And as I said, I was not the manager reviewer on this. So on this particular one, we have the vendor name, legal litigation.
That's not what I'm talking about.
And it has process IDs, ASH litigation.
And I understand that's responsive to the question, but it doesn't give a description of what the attorney did for those fees.
And I don't know if it's just not on this one, but I've seen ones that had like a description.
Okay.
I just don't see it on here.
And is it your testimony, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and correct me if I'm wrong, that upon receipt of this, ORS was supposed to ask for more information?
And this one, I did not review, and I didn't discuss this, but we're talking about the insurance contracts or whatever. We're supposed to have that burden of proof. We would not have known to give them the insurance contracts. That's what they talked about yesterday.
I'm just reading from this audit request where it says provide invoices for the coal ash litigation. And so if it didn't have the detail that they needed, they were supposed to ask for more information?
Yeah, if they needed more, because this is historically what we've done. So we don't mind doing more. We just need to know what to do, or we're going to run the process in, what they need.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to give our hearing officer, Mr. Dong, a chance to ask a question.
So, Ms. Smith, is it not routine to provide when requested? I know when I was in private practice, I would put on my timesheet my client number, my matter number, a description of the work that I did, a description of the amount of the number of hours I did down to the 10th of an hour. And I understand that some of those entries, the detail might be redacted because it might be privileged. Mm-hmm. But is it not routine to provide that to ORS when they review attorney expenses for either rate cases or for these coal ash expenses?
Yeah, and I do not know why it's not on this particular one, but on some of the other ones, let me look. If you can just give me a moment. I've got way too much paper. Okay, so on, if you look at GS9, page 6 of 7, on this particular invoice, we have the vendor name, the resource type, the accounting month and year. The journal line description looks like the litigation number. And then at the very end, it has an invoice description. Consultation, expert analysis, and reports regarding our proposed grid improvement plan and related to economic impact studies and cost-benefit analysis. And so I went back to see if I could get more information, such as the price per hour and how many hours, and they said I could. So that's this was the one I was trying to get, so it would be enough detail before them. But yes, so this is what I was a good example.
Okay. I mean, what I was getting confused, and I think this might be ground that's been plowed before, so I won't belabor it. But what I was confused about was this your testimony about how there was such a big difference between the e-billing and the billing. I mean, in my mind, at least, it's all the same.
It is in my mind also.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it is producible, even though it's in electronic form. It is producible, in fact, more easily electronically than it is in paper.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Smith, you're doing a fine job.
Oh, thank you.
Take a deep breath.
I'm kind of glad I wasn't last because I know you'll be ready to get out of here. That might have been a good thing, right?
Well, we got all night.
Okay.
Looks like it.
As a young prosecutor, I learned a very valuable lesson in situational awareness, where I observed one of my colleagues get chewed out by a circuit court judge for a discovery violation. And it was at that moment that I developed a open file policy. Whatever I had in my file, the defendant, through his lawyer, his or her lawyer, they were welcome to review it. I didn't want any issues about lack of transparency or be accused of a discovery violation, because it would greatly damage my credibility. And my colleagues have questioned you about the company's response to ORS's discovery request. And to me, it seems as if the company has gone to great lengths to make this process more difficult than it really has to be. And I've also heard you say several times, use the word historically. Now, I know you're not an attorney, but you do understand that it's the company's burden to prove that they're entitled to a rate increase.
I do understand that, and we supplied over 4 gigabytes of information, and that is equal to approximately 121,000 pages of documentation, and that does not include our testimony, our serve rebuttal, and we would have supplied the contracts. And all I'm saying about historical is, the data, when they ask for invoices, say on the litigation, they didn't ask for the contracts. Normally they would come back and ask if they wanted to see a contract.
Why not just give them everything that you have that's not privileged? That's not attorney-client privilege.
Sometimes,
I mean, why not ask clarifying questions? I don't.
And we will in the future, I guarantee you. If you want to bring it, also sometimes if we give them more than they want, if you're an auditor, so say we give them stuff they don't want, then, because sometimes we'll call them and say, do you really know what you've asked for? What you've asked for is going to be over, 2,000 pages. And because if we give them 2,000 pages, they're going to have to audit it. And so they'll say, oh, no, that's not really what we're trying to get at.
Did that happen in this case?
Did we do the 2,000 pages? I don't know.
No, did you ask clarifying questions regarding the discovery request?
If there was an unusual request, yes, we would ask questions, but this asked for invoices, and so that's why we gave them invoices. And we would have given them the contracts if they had asked.
Okay. I've heard this response before from a utility. If ORS would have asked, we would have given it to them.
When actually, I think in our fuel filing coming up, they've specifically asked for us not to provide things that they haven't asked for. If it's only in paper, provide it. If they only ask for electronically, do not provide it in paper, etc. So, yeah, and I know you've heard it from other utilities, I guess, and that's kind of casting a shadow over this, but we really do try to answer all their questions. And we call people we called one guy, they requested 5 o'clock on Friday. They wanted it on Saturday. They got it on Saturday. So, we really do try to respond. But I think, it's a new world. Going forward, it's just going to have to be, but how I'm going to read their mind to know if I'm not giving them what they've asked for, if they ask for invoices and they really want contracts, I don't know how I'm supposed to know that.
I understand. And so is your position that the company fully answered and properly responded to ORS's discovery request?
As we understood their request, yes, sir.
Okay. I want to transition to bonus incentives, some of the discussion that you've had with Mr. Nelson. Has the company been able to prove or offer any evidence that shows a correlation between a customer benefit and an employee incentive, whether that's a bonus, whether it's providing a workplace where employees are happy and they get warm and fuzzies for doing their jobs?
And I am not in HR. That would have been a question for Witness Metzler. So I was just giving my personal opinion, I guess, as an employee of when I feel like I'm valued or not. And it just those little things just, makes you feel like, because I tell you, most of us could probably go up the street and work at one of the banks and make more money. But no one really wants to work at the banks because they're known for their customer. I don't know if there is. It makes me a better person I want to work harder for the customer. Though I know I don't really work for the customer, but I want to work harder and do a better job for the company, which I think benefits the customer in the end.
Make no mistake about it. I understand having high employee morale.
Yeah.
I used to work for a pharmaceutical company. Mm-hmm. It's plush, but everything was done to drive sales. That was the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And there was always a correlation between every action that was asked of us and that we completed that could lead to an increase in sales. And so considering that this is live stream and there could be some of those folks who were at those public hearings, and we heard countless testimony about low-income people and single mothers who work 2 jobs, even the weekends, to pay their energy bill. I think they would have a hard time understanding why they should pay for incentives for an employee who has to work on the weekend to show up because they may go down the street and work for a bank, unless there's some direct correlation between that accountant or whoever's showing up on Saturdays and the ratepayer receiving some benefit.
Well, okay, in my uninformed HR opinion, I would say so if I didn't show up, because to be honest with you, I've worked probably every weekend for the last I don't know how long, they probably have to hire another person. So that's a benefit, because I probably do the work of 1 FTE and a half. But and one other thing that came up, I noticed yesterday, since I'll bring this up for the customers out there, everyone kept saying we have the highest rates. I kept hearing that. We have the highest rates. So I had someone pull the EEI data last night for me on the average bill people paid compared to Duke Energy South Carolina retail, compared to the national average and the Southeast average. So for residential, at the end of 2017, for the 12 months ended 2017, the average residential customer in South Carolina, DEC, paid $10.59. The national average was $10.10. 0.1059. The national average was 13.24, and the South Atlantic region was 11.73. For industrial, which I think Ms. Witness O'Donnell was referring to, the actual was 5.10. The national average was 7.04, and the South Atlantic was 6.58. And I know, and then I'm going to say this bad word, inflation-based, since 1990, if you compare our rates today to 1990, if you took the 1990 rate and accelerated it with the CPI, that rate would be 13.17 for residential and 8.43 for industrial. So we, make an effort. Somehow what we're doing is good because our rates are still very good compared to the national average in the Southeast.
And I appreciate that education. I just want to make sure that you understand that the commission has to balance, the company's ability to or opportunity to earn a reasonable return on their investments against ratepayers receiving reliable, safe, clean, affordable energy. You're here for a rate case. You have the burden to prove that you're entitled to recover, and so we're going to hold you to your burden. And the questions I've asked you, I've asked them out of sincerity to make sure that I can understand the company's full and complete position.
Yes, I fully understand that. I know there's been a lot of talk about I think it's equitable sharing or something between the ratepayer or between the shareholders and the customers. I think that's been brought up. But, our investors at 4.80 are not earning a reasonable return right now in relation to a utility. And so I understand we're trying to keep rates as low as possible. And you've heard witness Havard and Sullivan. We do have to have a reasonable return for our investors, and that's the regulatory compact, as our expenses plus a reasonable return for our investors, and that's all we're really asking for, and we do keep the customer in mind.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any other question?
I just want one follow-up, if you don't mind, Ms. Smith.
That's fine.
I looked at the list of the billings that you're claiming is coal ash, and just to explain it in another way, we've heard from the testimony that Duke is currently in litigation with several of its insurance companies to try and recover some of the cost.
That's my understanding, yes.
And so it's logical to assume that when those attorney bills come in for litigation related to against their insurance companies, that could probably go under coal ash. It's coal ash related, right? Right? I mean, it would be.
So. Yeah, I would think so, yes.
But it's not related necessarily to the rate base, because that's a third-party recovery. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why it's important to know what these expenses were for.
And if we do receive recovery from the insurance companies, it will go back to the ratepayers. And we've had that in the past on other issues where we've had litigation, recovered the expenses, and then in return we give the ratepayers.
Right. But just to further let you know why I'm concerned, I look at the list of coal ash invoices, and there's one bearing a date of April 5th. I may have to borrow your glasses. April 6, 2017. Mine are 2 weeks. I read this small print.
It is rough, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
I keep a magnifying glass at my desk.
But it jumped out at me because it's the monetary amount is $249,842.31, almost $250,000.
Yes, sir.
One bill. I would be curious if I were on a commission what that's for.
And we will be happy to get you that answer.
I'd really like to know. That's a fairly substantial legal bill, isn't it? Even for a large multi-billion-dollar corporation. One bill of $250,000.
And it could also be for 15 attorneys. I don't know.
Wow.
No.
Yeah. This is an example of why we'd like to know.
Oh, that's fine. And we can answer any questions, yes.
Okay. And then back, one final point, and I'm done.
Okay.
Really don't have any problem with you providing free coffee to your employees. I think that's admirable. I think it does make for a better workplace, and to give, even to give spot bonuses where somebody's done an excellent job. I understand that. But some of the folks at our public hearings, and I think rightly so, question, why would a CEO that's making $14 million get a $7 million retention bonus in 2017 to become the highest paid CEO in the nation? Do you have any thoughts about that? Because that's something that we heard at all of our public hearings, and I don't know what to tell those people when they ask that question. What is your thought about that?
Well, and I think one of the items is a lot of times they don't realize, they think they're paying that total amount, $21 million in their rates. And I think someone, I don't know if it was me or someone else testified, it's really more like around $547,000 was allocated. And I understand that, but, I just look at, to be honest with you, I look at the list of like all these CEOs, and I think she's, they're all just paid a lot of money. And I guess that's what they have to be paid to keep CEOs employed. I don't know. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other commissioner questions? Any redirect?
No, I would like to clarify the late filed exhibit because I want to get it right.
Okay.
It's my understanding that we want invoice information, but it sounded like the commissioner also wanted matter descriptions, and that is not the kind of thing that would be on an invoice. So if we're wanting matter descriptions for the matters listed on the table, we're happy to provide that, but I just want to make sure that we get it right so that the commission has the information that it needs.
And I don't have an objection to that, but I wasn't certain that we were looking for a late filed exhibit. And my problem with the late filed exhibit on this issue would be we weren't given this information to review, to make our recommendations. To come at this point and try and offer this to the commission, we can't weigh in on it.
I think Mr. Irvin asked.
I think that I don't want to put you to unnecessary burden, but I think that I would like a late file exhibit on the $250,000 fee. That's the one that jumped out at me, and that's the one I asked about. And for my own personal information, I'd just like to know what the matter was that generated that fee.
Right. And may I respond to Mr. Nelson's objection?
Sure.
I think the reason we're having the discussion is there was a miscommunication about what the ORS asked for and what we provided. We're happy to provide more detail. We directly responded to the data request. The billing system put out a listing of invoices. That's what we provided. We understand that it's not satisfactory. There was a question asked. We answered the question. And so clearly we don't anticipate being here again. But I don't think that we shouldn't be allowed to answer the questions that have arisen today just because they weren't asked before.
That's fair, and I understand your point, and it's well taken. And you can understand our concern when there's no detail. And so I think going forward, we're going to need more detail, particularly with the large items. And ORS has a discretion. They can ask for a sample. They can ask for any above $100,000. There are a lot of ways to do it, but we need more information. That's the point we're making.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Ms. Smith, that was more fun than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? Thank you for your testimony, and you may step down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, so do we have a exhibit number for that?
Yes. That you mean you're talking about the one that
Commissioner Irvin specifically requested that a late filed exhibit be made on the $250,000 invoice.
we absolutely do. It is hearing exhibit number 56. Okay. So we're down to ORS panel. Is that everything, Ms. Smith, from you? Okay. And while we're getting the ORS panel up here, we're going to take a short break.